Welcome back to Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_3on3. And before we get into today's episode, if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. My goal is to hit 1,000 subs before the end of the season. We've got roughly 15 to 16 games to go, so really want to make that happen. And as always, support the show in any way possible on our other social media platforms. Appreciate all the love and support as per. Now, probably can sense it a little bit. I'm a little bit flat and disheartened after the Pistons lost to the Miami Heat 101 to 104 on a genuine buzzer beating. I'm going to say it was like 35-footer from Bam Adebayo, who just hits the dagger three to break all of our Pistons' hearts once again. It only feels like last week it was Paolo Banchero hitting that crazy mid-range shot that he flipped up circus shot. Pistons, I'm going to have to go back and check, but I feel like that's at least the third buzzer beater they've lost on this season. And if it's not a buzzer beater, it feels like they've had 5 to 8 of those just heartbreaking shots in the final moments. And I think I have to start with this. I mentioned off the top, after having a bit of a struggle for much of tonight, Cade Cunningham got the Pistons back to 101 all with a tough layup. And then the Heat went down the other end. Cade knocked that down with about a minute to go, or just under around 50 seconds. And Heat go down the other end. Duncan Robinson turns it over. And the Pistons come back down. And they still have the ball with a full shot clock. And there's no shot clock. And the Pistons can wind the clock down. And then Cade gets the ball with around 14 seconds left. And I honestly don't understand why. It just didn't make much sense, but he decides to shoot a pull-up three with 10 seconds to go that ultimately misses, leads to Miami rebound, which, as we all know, and if you all saw, Terry Rozier brings the ball down the court, draws a defense, Bam Adebayo is trailing, and like I said off the top, from about 35 feet out, just pretty much swishes a pull-up three. And as tough as a shot as that is, that's not the story. The story is Cade Cunningham. There's just, I reckon he just must have got lost in the moment and rushed the shot, because I don't know, maybe you could blame Monty for not calling a timeout, but I think the Pistons, you trust your star player in this decision to wind the clock down. It felt like Miami's defense had conceded the fact that Pistons were going to get the last shot. I can't remember off the top of my head if the Detroit were in the bonus, but it felt like Miami ready just to play the clock out, hopefully force this to OT. And then Cade just pulled up, and all I can think is he rushed it. I haven't had a chance to watch the post game because I've just got done watching this game. It's quite late here in Australia, and I'm keen to get this recap out. But forgive me if Cade did fully explain his reasoning in the post game, but strange decision. Maybe his thinking was, if I get the shot up and I do miss, then it just doesn't make any sense, actually, as I'm saying that out loud. I don't really understand it. So I think we have to just say that was a bad decision, which, it kind of, I'm not going to say it's the only reason Detroit lost the game, because I'm going to get into some of the other reasons why. But when you just look at that last minute after getting back into this game when they trailed by 16 in the third quarter, and even I think Duncan Robinson, talk about a guy who's going to be in my nightmares, but he made a ridiculous 4-point play to put them up by 5 with like 2 minutes to go, and that's when you felt like the door might have shut. I saw some fans leaving the stadium on the broadcast, but then Cade comes back. Oh no, Stu hit the 3 in the corner, which was huge, and then Cade comes back down and ties it up at 101 out of the timeout. But yeah, unfortunately, as always, it feels like with this team. I mean, the Heat were without Jimmy Butler tonight, Tyler Hero. I'm sure I'm probably missing a couple of players. Jovic didn't play tonight either. Not that he's a crucial piece, but he started last game. Uh, and yeah, probably definitely a game the Pistons should have won, especially after losing to the Heat, getting kind of blown out the other night. That was a game for them for the taking, and just couldn't close it out. I mean, I don't know how many times I said that this season. I don't know how many times Pistons fans have gone back and forth, putting the blame on the coach or certain players. But tonight, I think, unfortunately, that's one Cade's probably going to regret. And it even felt like once that buzzer went, you could see he was saying to, I can't remember if it was Stu, but as he walked off, you could tell, I think he was saying, my bad. And you could see the teammates kind of saying, no, you're good. But yeah, I think he knows that was not the right decision. And I guess you just move on. I think he will learn from that. It's not something I'm going to hold against Cade. This team's won 12 games. You would like to see them close out some close games, don't get me wrong, but you just move on from this, in my opinion, and hope that the next time this comes up, Cade, brings it, doesn't shoot that ball until there's like 3 seconds left on the clock max. But anyway, I think it kind of sucked because, like I said, Cade, he made the 3-point shot. Then he had the assist to Stu in the corner where he drew the defense in, but props to Stu for nailing that because that was a huge shot. Down 5, like Pistons needed that. Stu drains the corner 3. And then Cade comes back down, scores over the top of the defense. I think it was Jaime Jaquez was defending him, but just, yeah, unfortunately, we will always remember in losses, you remember the mistakes more so than the heroics. So, look, Cade kind of had a really nice stretch in the fourth quarter and the second quarter, but for much of the game, he was 80-90 from the field. I had in my notes here, you have to wonder if that knee's bothering him. He was listed as questionable prior to the Miami Heat game on Saturday or Friday, I should say. And you have to wonder if that, I believe it was the knee sprain that he suffered early in the season. You have to wonder if that's bothering him because tonight, 1 of 6 from 3, 8 of 19 from the field. And then the game before against Miami, 33% from the field, didn't knock down a 3, 11 points. So I thought tonight his jumpers, especially in the first and third quarter, they look flat. I haven't seen them look that flat for a while. Just he had no elevation on his jumper, especially in that first half. Before he kind of got it going at the rim and getting on some drives, but his jumper looked really flat. Like I capitalized the really here in my notes because I just haven't seen it look that flat in a minute. So have to wonder if maybe that knee's bothering him. I hope not, because as much as like this season has sucked, I still think every game matters, especially for this young core to play together heading into the off season. So, I mean, ultimately, if it means he has to rest tomorrow in Boston, which I don't know, I want to see him play because he tends to play well against Boston, but maybe they rest him tomorrow on the back to back or today by the time you're watching this. But yeah, I'm just starting to wonder if that knee's bothering him because he was shooting the ball at an elite clip prior to these last 2 games. So something to monitor for sure. He finishes with 17 points, 4 boards, 9 assists, 3 turnovers. Yeah. You look at the box score, there was no real standouts for the Pistons tonight. Evan Fournier, I will give him a bit of a shout out. I know he's frustrating on defense, but tonight he made some key shots as well. Key shots, 18 points. He had 3 steals. I think he tried his best. But yeah, just a bit of a, that's what the Heat, that's how the Heat play. This kind of, I'm going to talk about this with Jalen Duran in my last sort of talking point, but the Heat just make everything tough. Like they bump, they make you feel like when they're boxing out, they niggle away. They're pesky. Their arms always flying everywhere. They really make you work for everything. And that's a bit of a cliche line, but I mean, when you just look at like the players they're putting on the court, like, look, I've only watched predominantly Pistons basketball this season, but like that Heat culture thing, like you really just see it in games like tonight. Like they're missing Jovic, they're missing Butler, they're missing Hero. Um, you know, I don't know, just everyone that comes on, like Haywood Highsmith, Duncan Robinson, like Terry Rozier, Jaime Jaquez. They're just, Darrell Wright. Um, I don't know. They just all make plays. They all make like they'll make their mistakes, but they're just defensively. There's just a discipline with them, and um, Pistons score 100 points tonight. So the Heat only score 104, but they're missing their best player. So I guess moving on, I wanted to give some praise to the bench because honestly, the Pistons got down by 16 points in that third quarter, and it really felt like the bench or just the four-man unit of Stanley Amude, Marcus Sasser, Evan Fournier, and James Wiseman. Those four all finished positive in the plus minus. And I mean, I felt like they all made plays at key times. Pistons were down by as many as 16, like I mentioned in the third. That group brought it all the way back to like a 4 or 5 point margin. I think Stu was in for much of those minutes, or maybe from Tekio, but it was those four guys plus a starter, which was good to see because we didn't see an all bench lineup. But all four of those guys contributed. Amude made 3 or 5 threes, like a couple of really key ones in that third quarter. Sasa had a really nice floater in that third. And then I've already spoken about Fournier, but I think the bench kind of got the Pistons back into this game. And, we've been hard on the bench all season, but I think it's worth just shouting them out. And also just, I mean, injuries probably are why the Pistons only played with 9 players tonight, but it's also good to see Monty mixing a starter with that group because I still think that helps. So I want to give the bench a quick shout out. But final talking point for tonight, or today, I should say, is Jalen Duren versus James Wiseman in tonight's game. And I don't know, this is like from what I saw, James Wiseman impacted winning a lot more than Jalen Duren. And I feel like in the past 4 to 5 games, maybe it's post All-Star break, maybe it's now that Marvin Bagley's off the team and Wise knows he has a backup role, at least for the rest of the season, it feels like. But he seems to have really, taken the reins and taken ownership of that backup 5 position. And obviously Taj Gibson's having an influence on Wise as well, his mindset and making sure he's positive. But I just think the effort and the energy we're seeing from Wise, I haven't seen. Like 6 rebounds tonight in 16 minutes, 4 points. Like, once again, it doesn't jump off the page, but I just feel like he still made a couple of mistakes. Like, he got dunked on by Bam. That's okay. I feel like that happens. Fumbled a couple of rebounds here or there, but I just am really enjoying his energy and his presence in the paint. And I'm enjoying him constantly setting screens, rolling. Even when he doesn't get rewarded, he's running back. He's still making an impact on defense. And when you contrast that with what we saw from Jalen Duren tonight, uh, I think that's where Jalen Duren has to get much better because some of his efforts tonight were not up to scratch. I reckon there was 4, 5, 6 instances where he didn't get back on defense because he was complaining to the ref about a missed foul call or something else. And when you're playing on Bam Adebayo, who's one of the most nimble, athletic, agile 5s, if you are not getting back in transition, you are just costing your team. And man, I saw JD with his arms up in the air looking at the ref while the Heat and the rest of the Pistons were sprinting down the other court numerous times. And it was so frustrating, man, especially when he's having games like tonight where his handle's loose and he's having a couple of turnovers. 4-10 from the field tonight. He forced some things. Yeah, just a really rough game. And like, I can deal with the turnovers and having like a bad night with your handle. But what I can't stand is when you're going to complain to the refs. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 or 5 times. And I mean, I thought he was lucky to get back in the game tonight. You know, um, I thought Wiseman was giving great energy and effort, and Jaden Ivey ends up tonight sitting on the bench doesn't come on in the fourth, and Fournier takes those minutes. I honestly thought Jalen Duran was lucky to come back in the game from what I saw in the first 2.5 quarters, because I thought Wiseman was giving better energy and effort. So he comes back into the game, and I just thought he got completely outplayed by Bam, which, that's expected. Bam's a multiple time All-Star, I think, all defensive player, like just the start of a 5-man. But there's something that's reoccurring with Jalen Duran with me, which it's still very early, and I've made a video on this before, but often, the Pistons are trying to mold him into Bam Adebayo, and I like that. I like aiming for a player like that, a guy that can create a little bit, operates a lot out of pick and roll and handoff situations, can put the ball on the floor. But, I mean, if you compare those two tonight, I did not see many similarities. And Jalen Duran tonight, like I said, I've made a video about this, reminded me of Andre Drummond. The pouting, the complaining, and Andre always used to dominate lesser centers. He would always dominate, non-all-star bigs. But when it come to defending skilled bigs or all-star bigs, it just felt like he always got outplayed, no matter what. Even guys like Brook Lopez used to dominate Andre. It was like he'd always have field days against like the Celtics, who struggled, who never really had a 5. Like someone like Al Horford, Andre used to have a field day against, because Horford is an extremely skilled player, and I guess an all-star, but he's more of like a finesse player. Whereas like tonight, Jalen Duran, like I feel like when he goes up against these all-star type bigs, like, and these physical imposing bigs, I just can't recall a game where he's beaten another quality center. And I don't think that's a horrible thing, but I feel like he often gets outplayed by the good centers in this league, which maybe I'm being harsh, but I feel like these nights happen against the better bigs in the league where things don't go his way. He can't just out physical players. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed with his effort tonight, because I feel like this would be a game against Miami he has circled in his personal calendar, because, this is the Pistons want to mold him into Bam. And yeah, tonight he just reminded me of the ghost of Andre Drummond, who you can see in the background here. But, I hope he bounces back. The Pistons, like I said, play the Celtics today on a back-to-back. So he's going to have he's going to be up against Kristaps Porzingis, who's a stretch big. So that's a guy who could give him trouble in terms of pulling him out of the paint. So it'd be interesting to see how the Pistons defend that with him and Stu. But yeah, I think James Wiseman tonight should have closed the game. But nonetheless, another heartbreaking loss. So that was game 67. We officially have 15 games left. So it's one of those things that feels like this season has taken forever to get through. But at the same time, I kind of can't believe it's almost playoff time. And once again, we won't be a part of it. Once again, we're probably going to be looking at the draft for hope. But yeah, let me know what you thought about tonight's game. Look, I was impressed, happy they came back, put up a fight, and could have won that game. But when you after you remove yourself from the heat of the game, and you look at the outs Miami had, it's the game in Detroit. It's just one of those kind of sobering feelings again, where you just feel like, wow, this team is just, there are flashes, there are glimpses, but it's why in the past, when the Pistons had those 3 wins in 4 games, I kind of opened each episode saying, I'm not getting too ahead of myself, because I just feel like they're beating depleted teams like the Hornets, like the Nets, who are in no man's land. Happy with the wins, don't get me wrong, but you see tonight against a well-drilled team like Miami, they're just still so far off it. So still encouraged with some things I see, but that's a game I feel like you have to just win. Just have to win. But they don't. So Let me know in the comments below your thoughts and feelings on the game. What did you think of Cade's decision to shoot the ball at the end there? What did you think of Jaden Ivey's game? I thought he had a really nice stretch there in the second quarter, but ultimately Monty decides to bench him for Evan Fournier. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on Jalen Duren. I put out a poll today on on Twitter, and some other places just to see how Pistons fans are feeling about the young core, which I think I'm going to do a separate video on later in the week when there's no games. But yeah, let me know how you're feeling about that young core, because Jalen Duren was ranked quite high in a lot of people's lists. So very interested to see your thoughts. But till tomorrow after the Celtics game, as always, go Pistons.